watched a young soldier take his seat on the plane, and the guy by the window said,
hello, my name is Kurt Borger, and I am the library director here at Riverview Public Library. And today we have a special guest. It is Council Member Elmer Trombley, and he is here to tell us about his military experience. He was in the Navy. He was in the Navy from 1954 to 1962, correct?
Correct.
Thank you for coming today. I appreciate it. Where and when were you born?
I was born in September the 5th, 1937 in Trenton.
Was your family living in Riverview at the time?
Yes.
What were your parents' occupations and how many siblings did you have?
Well, my mother worked for Detroit Edison and retired with over 30 years. And my dad worked for Great Lakes Steel as a pipe fitter, and he was there for over 30 years. I have one brother, Ron Trombley, and a sister, Marilyn, and another sister, Irene.
What did your mother do with DTE?
She worked in the cafeteria, serving food and doing whatever they do in the cafeteria.
What high school did you attend?
I attended Dearborn Laurie. My dad got divorced and remarried, and he took me out to Taylor for a while. But after I quit school first day of 12th grade and joined the Navy. I was disappointed I couldn't come back to Riverview. My sister talked my dad out of it, and she came back and lived with my aunt, but he would not let me come. So I guess I went to Catholic school, and I was in high school at a public school, and it was like 2 years behind what I've already had. And I just wasn't happy. And my three cousins were in the military, Army, Navy, and Marines. And my cousin, Jim Teedy, used to take me over to the Navy base at Grozito. And I just kind of fell in love with the Navy, and I couldn't wait to turn 17. I had that in the back of my mind when I was just 13, 14. And that's what I did. When I went to join, I went back to high school, said goodbye to all my friends, and they thought I was kidding them. And my homeroom teacher said, "You're just kidding, Elmer." And I said, "No, I'm not." I said, "I just come to say goodbye, and I'll be walking out here in a few minutes, and I'm on my way." My mother, she didn't really care. She was my stepmother. But my dad, he was totally against it.
Why?
He had different plans for me. He wanted me to be a doctor, or a ball player, and I just told him, "Hey, I'm not happy where I'm at. If I'd have been in Riverview, I'd have been happy, but I'm not happy, and I'm going in the Navy." He says, "Well, I'm not signing." I said, "Well, I'm not going to school either." So as time went by, I came home one day and asked, "Where's Dad?" And she said he went to Detroit. I said, "Why didn't he drive us?" He said he couldn't. He had to take the bus because he was so upset. He went down and signed my papers for me to go in the Navy.
What do you think made him change his mind?
Well, I don't know. He was a disciplinarian too, and I guess he read me that he taught me he means what he's saying. He ain't going back to school.
If we could go back a little bit, now you mentioned that you were exposed to the Navy at the Naval Station in Grozeel.
Yes.
Who was taking you there? Could you explain that a little bit?
My cousin was in the Navy. He was a World War II vet, and when he'd come home from World War II, he was stationed at Grozeel for a while. And every now and then he'd just take me with him. I'd go swimming in the swimming pool over there, and the guys over there, the Navy guys, they just took good care of me. I was only 6 or 7, and I just fell in love with the Navy. you know.
Fell in love with the Navy at a young age, so
Yep.
there really wasn't any thinking of going into any other branch of service.
No, I thought about the Marines, but he said, my cousin told me, "But you get an education in the Navy." He says, "The Marines, you're a foot soldier, you're a killer." I said, "Well, I'm going in the Navy anyhow," but I thought about the Marines. My cousin was in the Army, I never give that a thought.
Where was your basic training?
The United States Naval Training Center, Great Lakes, Illinois.
What was a typical day like during your basic training?
Well, when you get there, they give you a sea bag. They put you in a line after they talk to you for a little bit, and they put you in a line and you start walking through where you get your clothes and stuff, and they look you over and ask you what size, and they hand it to you and you put it in the bag. So you get all your clothes, and then they measure your feet for shoes, and then they send you to the barber shop and they skin you as a skinhead. I had kind of long hair, but they trim me right down. They like guys with kind of long hair. Mine wasn't, hanging down.
Why? Because they're making a point.
Yeah, I had the sides on like I kind of do now. But anyway, and then you start boot camp. Well, the only really marching we did was on they called it a grinder. It was a big asphalt pad. And you had to march and learn right obliques and left, about face, and you called cadence, and you did that part of the time, but most of the time we were going to school, like learning knots, learning what the Navy was all about, and what type of ships they have, and what you might be assigned to. So I had an idea when I got finished through boot camp what I was going to do. And
what was that? What was the idea that you were going to do?
oh, I wanted to be a pipe fitter like my dad. So they had them in the Navy. And that was what I wanted to be. And when I got in there, that's what I told them. I'd like to be a pipe fitter. And they put me in the engineering department. The Navy has, in boot camp, they have different color stripes. And there's white, blue, green, and red. Well, red is engineering, and green is Airedales. They're on aircraft carriers and stuff like that. And I got assigned after boot camp. Boot camp was very interesting. I mean, you competed for flags, education flag, sports flag. Barry was the cleanest. You had a company with about 80 guys in there. And so you had to try to win some flags. So when you marched out on a grinder or you were doing some type of marching, that off of the flag you'd have some pennants flying with it wasn't the American flag, it was your company flag with your number on it. I was in Company 219. And when they see you coming and all them flags, them banners are dangling off the top, they say, "Man, them guys are pretty good," So
It's like a competition between.
yeah, it's competition between all the booths in the camps. That whatever company they were in, they had a lot of sailors there at Great Lakes, Illinois, going through boot camp.
Did you have any specialized training?
And when my name came out, they said, New London. I thought I was going overseas to London. They said, "Hey, Trombley, that's New London, Connecticut. It's actually Groton, where the sub base is. It isn't in New London, but that's where they use it. It's across the Thames River. It's New London and Groton."
Well, what I meant, not so much where they were going to send you, but what you were going to do.
Well, they put me in the engineering division, and I think they did that not because I asked, because of my test they give you, what you're adapted for. IQ test, I guess they call it. Yeah. Mine come out in engineering, and I was tickled to death because I wanted to be a pipe fitter, like my dad. You know, like they say, most kids want to be what their dad was. So that's what I ended up being.
Was a pipe fitter.
Yeah.
Now, did you have to have any specialized training for that?
I made third class petty officer, and I didn't really have any specialized training except they have the books for third class, second class, first class. And we used to sit around the shop and ask each other questions. Some guys were going for damage control, and we'd ask them damage control questions. And they'd ask me pipe fitter questions, and lo and behold, I passed the test when I took the test. And they had promised me a Class A school. I didn't get it out of boot camp, but the first class metalsmith I worked for, he said, I'll give you a school. I guess they liked the way I worked. I was, aggressive. And I passed the third class test, and they wouldn't send me to school, and I was a little upset. So the first class said, they won't send you because you already made third class. That's what a Class A school's for. And it was gonna be in Great Lakes, Illinois, where I could have came home on the weekend. But that didn't happen, so he said, I'll find you a school. So he came up about 2-3 months later. He said, Dave Trombley, I got you a school, I got you a class. You wanna be a welder? I said, yeah, because I know pipe fitters weld on the outside. And I said, yeah. He said, well, it's a Class C1 welding school in San Diego, California. I said, I don't want no Class C school. He said, C1, the best the Navy has. There is no better school than that. So I said, I'll think about it. After he told me I'd extend 2 years, and I called my dad, and he just told me, hey, bud, you're going to welding school now. You'll be a pipe fitter welder. You can come right out of the Navy and get a good job.
Which differs from the attitude your dad had when you went in. Now he accepted it and was probably even proud of you.
Yeah. So anyway, I went to San Diego, and there were 40 guys in this welding school. And the first day in arc, I could gas weld and I could cut. But my first day in arc welding, they put us in a booth. They told us what we had to do, and we had to build a billet, like a ingot. It was like a 3/8 blade. We had to build it up about that thick and keep it square. Well, I was standing there because I'd never stuck an arc in my life. And this instructor finally came by and said, hey, Trombley, ain't you gonna participate in the class? I said, I don't know how to weld. I said, I never struck an arc in my life. Oh, he just went kind of berserk, crazy, laughing. He said, he called all the welding instructors, they had about 8 of them in that school. And he said, guess what? We got a kid here. They called me a kid. I was only 18. He said, we got a kid here that don't know how to weld. We're going to make a welder out of this guy. He said, then he told me all these other guys come to school for shore duty in California. He said, they're all got hash marks on their arm, 12, 14, 16 years. He said, they come for the shore duty. They don't care about welding, because they already know how. They just take school. And anyway, the top 16 in the class got extra training, and I happened to finish 13th in the class. And they said, what would you like to do, Trombley? And I said, I'd like to get into underwater welding and cut. And they said, okay, we'll send you over. They sent me over to the Navy yard where the divers are. And I had to talk to this lieutenant He said, so you want to be a diver, eh? I said, yes, sir. He said, you a qualified diver? I said, no, sir, that's why I want to come here. He says, that won't happen. He said, first of all, to go to the school, you got to be a qualified diver. So you're out of luck there until you go to a diver school and be qualified. So anyway, I took the advanced course with aluminum, carbon molybdenum, lead, stainless steel, aluminum, all different types of metal, brazing. So anyway, I took that and I got to stay there for another 6 months, and I came back to the ship, and I was tickled to death.
Where did you serve? Can you give me an idea of where around the world did you go?
Besides Guantanamo Bay, I was in Havana, Cuba. I was in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I was in Port-au-Prince. I was in Jamaica, Haiti, Bermuda, Ciudad Trujillo.
So mostly in the Atlantic.
Island, yeah.
So mostly in the Atlantic and the
all
Caribbean.
Atlantic, yeah, in the Caribbean.
So your first ship was the USS Whittick.
Yes.
How long were you on that ship for?
I was on there 3 years and about 4 months.
What were your typical duties on that
Well,
Whittick?
if something broke down in the boiler room, I'd stand my watches in the boiler room, the water tender, watching the water. You had to keep it from going out of sight and keep it from going either way out of sight because it could blow up a boiler. And you just had to sit there for 4 hours. It's like steering your car. You know, going too far or getting too low, you gotta turn it up, make the water come back, you know, so it was kind of boring. And then I'd walk around the ship sometime on watch, checking voids. You had a brass ruler, like, and had a string on it. You drop it down and see how much water was in the bilges and stuff. I did that. Cleaned urinals. They didn't have urinals, they had just troughs. And sometimes they'd call you, instead of a pipe fitter, they'd call you shit fitter, you know, because you had to go in the toilet. You just laugh it off.
Right. Where did you go? Where did you sail to on the Whittick?
My first stop was Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, where we operated with the Nautilus, and it's where you go to play war, practice. And they shoot at planes pulling drones, shoot at the drones, not the plane. And then the Nautilus, they put on an exhibition. They shot a torpedo at the carrier Randolph. The Randolph picked it up, was moving out of the way, but little did they know the Nautilus was right behind that torpedo, heading right as they were turning. You could have sunk it with 3 direct hits. And then they picked off a fuel tanker. They never shot at our destroyer, but it was quite an operation. And we knew about the Nautilus. We knew it could outrun us underwater, it could outrun us on top of the water, and it could do an about face and the length of it. It didn't have to make a big circle. It was top of the line technology at that time.
State of the art.
Yeah, every time we'd go to Guantanamo Bay, we would go, it'd be like about a month at sea. And in between, when we was out, they'd pull in the ports to give us some liberty. So it was fantastic. I mean, you've seen how other people live in grass shacks, and Jamaica especially. I've heard of them, but I never seen them, but I saw them there.
So what? What do you mean?
Grass.
Oh, you mean the
Yeah,
actual,
hay,
what people are
hay with
living
mud
on?
them. Hay with mud on them. People very poor there in Haiti and Jamaica especially. In Haiti, I went up to, I don't know the name of the castle, but it was You had to go by car to get to the start, then you went by donkey, and you went up a mountain. You couldn't, that's the only way up, on donkey, or walk. And then this castle, like, it was up in the sky, where the British could have, British or the French, one of the two.
Probably the French.
Yeah, where they could have held them off, and they had the cannons up there and the balls stacked up. And I'm saying, hey, how could they ever build this up here? How did they get the material up there? But it was huge. And then we went all the way on the roof, and it's like we were up there, I was taking movies, and it's like you were standing up in the clouds. That's how high it was up. But it was very.
How long would you get typically on shore leave? Say you go into port, say like in Jamaica would be Kingston or whatever the port would be. How would it vary? How many days you would get?
Yeah, it usually be 3-4 days. Yeah, we have fun when we're on Liberty. They call it Liberty, and you'd get. Sometime you pull in port, you might not have Liberty. You know, it might be your duty, so you could finagle with your officer, whoever was in charge. You could say, "Hey, Kurt, want to switch with me? I'll give you $20 if you take my duty." And you'd agree because you weren't interested, and go to the captain and said, "Hey, Kurt wants to take my duty. Can I go on Liberty?" "All right, as long as it's covered." He said, "That's all it counts. It's got to be covered." So we trade. We used to do some crazy things. You could buy a carton of cigarettes on the ship for 90 cents. But over in Havana, Cuba, one pack is worth 50 cents. So, being bad boys, we would tape cigarettes around our legs, around our body, and then they had water taxis. We wouldn't go in on the ship's boat. We would take a water taxi. Those were the Cubans that come out, pick you up, take you in. And as soon as you hit the shore, as soon as they got to the shore, you better take off running. But the town was right there. And you just run in the store, you had no problem getting rid of the cigarettes. So.
While in service, how did you stay in contact with your friends and family?
Well, you write a letter, and then they'd come and pick it up with a helicopter, and they'd take mail out, and they'd bring it back. Lower it down.
When you were on shore leave, did you ever call home?
Oh yeah, lots of times. Yeah, reverse the charges.
Who did you call most, your dad or your mom?
Yeah, my mom and dad.
Mom and dad?
Yeah.
Then after that, you went to the USS Hank.
Yeah, they made Liddy preferred sea duty. That's like same as shore duty. We usually, when we was in New Groton, we'd go out in the morning at 8 and come back in at 4 every day, unless we were going over somewhere else. We'd operate in New Island Sound.
Long Island?
Long Island Sound with the Nautilus every day. But we'd go out at 8 and in at 4. And we'd do what we had to do, and it was like shore duty. It was home like going to work, you know. Go in at 8, get off at 4. And then you were free as long as you didn't have duty. You might have a duty, weekend, you might have a duty today. They had to schedule up who had duty, who had the watches,
Tell us a little about when you found out when you were going to go home. You were discharged. Did you know you were going to be discharged?
Yes, and I had got married about 6 months before I got out. My wife is from Mystic, Connecticut. Her dad was a chief in the Navy. Her brother was a lieutenant commander in the submarine force. And her other brother was a decorated hero, but he defied his dad too. He went in the Army. He should have went in the Navy, but he wasn't going to do that. So he went in the Army, and he was a decorated hero.
What was your reaction from your family and friends about you returning from your service?
Oh yeah, they had a big party for me, and good time. I was going to take a couple months off because I got out in August, and I was going to take a couple months off, you know, before I went looking for a job, because I could collect unemployment, and then I collected $300 Korean mustard note pay. It was a bonus life. So I went down to sign up for unemployment in Wyandotte, and they said, well, you're not eligible. I said, well, I'm not. Why ain't I? He said, because you do Korean mustard note pay. At that time, unemployment was $25 a week. So that was in about August, close to the end of August. And by September, I kept standing in line down at McLeod. And one morning I came back because they'd stopped the line. They said, no more hiring today. Come back tomorrow. So I got home, my granddad, he says, where have you been, bud? I said, I was down there standing in line, but they stopped hiring again. He said, they just called here and want you back. So I went down there and they hired me, and it was odd that my family doctor, Dr. Boyd in Trenton, was the McLeod doctor too. So I had to go down there and get a physical, and he said to me, buddy, didn't you just get out of the Navy? And I said, yeah. He said, didn't you have a full physical? I said, yeah. He says, well, okay, just sign the paper. He said, you're good to go.
How did you work? How long did you work for McLeod?
I worked there till they closed. I wasn't there when they closed, but I got out after 31 years. I had a skin reaction, and they put me on a medical retirement, but I didn't stay on it. I just got another job putting laid off workers to work with the Metropolitan AFL-CIO out of Lansing.
And how long did you do that?
I did that for 2 years, from 90 to 92, and then them grants ran out. And then I got a job at the Downriver Community Conference doing the same work. And then that lasted a couple of years, and then they were starting to lay off. And they were going to lay a guy off that had more time than me. And Jim Jones was the director. He lived here in Riverview. And he was going to keep me, and and I said, no, I don't play that. I said, Victor's got more time on that job than me. I said, just lay me off. So I got laid off, and I went to work for the county.
How long were you with the county?
10 and a half years.
10.5 years. Then you retired after
that? 2006.
How long have you been a city council member in Riverview?
32 years.
How many children do you have?
I have 5. I have a son, Jim. He is a Riverview councilman. And I have a son, Robin, who is a supervisor for Wayne County Roads in New Boston. My one daughter works she's a human resource director for Miller, Canfield, Paddock, and Stone. My other daughter retired from the post office, and my other son works at the Sibley Yard as a maintenance mechanic.
How many grandchildren do you have?
I got 7 grandchildren, and I got a great-grandchild on the way from Jim's daughter, Kristen.
Oh, congratulations. Do you still stay in contact with people that you know or knew from your military experience?
I got about 4 buddies. We intertalk all the time.
And do you belong to any veterans organizations?
Yeah, I belong to the American Legion, Post 389 Riverview.
Now the last question, Mr. Trombley, is if there's one thing you would like to tell people about the military, your military experience, or anything that happened in the military, what would you like to tell them?
Well, I'm kind of a guy that believes in discipline. And I think all kids, when they reach out of high school, they should have to go to a boot camp in the military, not stay in the military, but just go in there and find out what it's all about. Because it ain't like mom and dad telling you to go empty the garbage. In the military, when they tell you, you better do it now. It ain't, I'll get it in a few minutes. That won't work. You'll be down on your all fours doing push-ups. They'll say, match me 20. If you ask them why, don't ever, in the
And
military.
if you ask them why, then you'll be doing 100.
Yeah, especially in boot camp, don't ask them why. Because the saying in the Navy is, and I guess all the military, in boot camp, when I'm right, I'm right. When I'm wrong, I'm right. You understand that? And you better say, yes, sir. It was good.
The biggest lesson that you got probably,
Yeah.
or you're telling other people is discipline. Did you consider yourself ill-disciplined before you went in?
No,
No, but it probably taught you more discipline then.
because my wife would say to me sometimes, boy, you're tough on them kids. If they only knew. But I learned, and I was making sure my kids learned the right way. And it ain't like it is today. You ain't allowed to spank them or do this.
Well, thank you for coming today, Mr. Trombley. Thank you for spending your time with us. Thank you for your service to our country, and thank you for your service to the city of Riverview. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.